Hi. So I read this book and I was just interested in sharing it with someone and the stuff that I thought was interesting. So the book is called The Almanac of Nava Ravikant. He's an Indian author. He mm, he was he's immigrated to America as far as I know. I mean, it was written in the book, and he had studied economics and computer science, and he's a business owner. Um, and he's also on YouTube and stuff like that. But I'm actually not really sure about like his company and like his business and stuff. But I was really interested in the majors that he had studied in, because he talks quite a lot about like science and applied science and how he regards scientists. And I don't know, I'm personally really interested in people that have studied economics. I've mm, I think there was like this study or like this article or something about that, about like mm, how a lot of impactful people in different ways have been the ones who've studied economics. So that's always interesting. And the books is like it's been gathered from his interviews and his tweets and stuff like that from uh, the content that's available from him. And Eric Jorgensen has done it. And I think he's done a great job because I personally really enjoyed reading this book. And so many of the quotes are like written in sort of a um, tweets type of way. And I think they were tweets, I don't know. Yeah, I think they were his actual tweets. And yeah, they were like snacks of wisdom and really interesting stuff. So to kickstart with the book itself, um, as you can see, it had like these main three topics, and like these were the things that he gave his input on. Uh, First, it started with wealth, happiness, and the final one was philosophy. And like the points that he was mentioning, uh, many of them repeated throughout the book, so it wasn't like just one chapter, but I've just gathered some of the stuff that I found interesting, not even all. And yeah, and here's also the obviously the book cover. uh I believe it's available for free, and yeah, if I find the link I'll put it down below. But yeah, it's also available for free. So as we know, the book starts with wealth and like how to make money and stuff like that, obviously. And I actually came across this book from this idea of passive income. I was watching a YouTube video about YouTube addiction. And yeah, the guy talked about how he had read this book, and like he talked about the passive income. um I think his name was James. I I will probably link the video or something. I'm not sure. If I find it, I will link it down below. And yeah, so that was what sparked me to kind of go and read this book. And I'm not disappointed. I'm really glad that I did. So the idea of passive income is kind of having a source of income that kind of gives you some sort of freedom. It's like earning in your sleep, so you're not actually working, but the money is making itself. And it comes from owning something. So, for example, when you own a business and like you have employees and stuff, they're earning the money for you while you're not necessarily working all the time, like 24/7. And um, the book really talks a lot about having something special and like offering something that's that can't be taught but can be learned, and like having this sort of special knowledge. It says that when you have this specific thing, this type of thing, people will find themselves interested in you, or in the things that you're offering, and like that's how you earn money. It's like, for example, the guy that was talking about this, he said that like he had his YouTube channel, obviously, and like he had a film that was coming out and like some other sources of income, passive income, and like it's basically talking about the type of income that if you're not working for like a certain amount of hours a day, it's still up and running. So the second idea, as I said, is like that sort of special knowledge that I talked about. It's like that thing that people would want your services for, and like would be keen to pay you for it. So the book talks about how you can sort of uh, present this special knowledge, and the best form was suggested to be coding. And I think it's like pretty obvious with like the applications and like this apps and like platforms, and how they've made certain people extremely rich. So I think it makes sense in that sort of sense. And the other stuff is owning a business, any type of business, or making media like blogs, books, videos, like any sort of consumable content, honestly. Like I think it can just be summed up as anything that you can present to someone else. And also in terms of labor, so when you have employees who do the work for you. And yeah, I'm actually thinking that maybe I have written this wrong, but I don't think it's entirely wrong. Like, it's also like a subdivision of having a business. When you like have a business, you own that sort of capital and that labor. So this was like an extremely uh, interesting quote from the book that I really thought about it a lot. And it's like money can only solve your money problems. And this has embarked some reasons for me to like have some conversations with other people about this, because this is something that I really hear about a lot, and this is something that I always say. It's like, what's going to like fix you? What do you want? And it's usually money. And this was really interesting because money can only solve like your money problems. Money can't change your nationality. I mean, it can give you citizenship, but still, like, it can't change your family. It can't change your I don't know, kids in sense of, I mean, there's so many things to argue that like money can change, but even then there are certain things that it can't. And yeah, like especially in that sort of happiness realm, uh, it was really interesting for me. And like, yeah. So if you have like other types of problems, even then I think money can solve them as well. But at the same time, this is still, to me, that's a pretty powerful statement. So I'm not sure if I talked about it in the chapter section or not, but um, there was also a subdivision of the book that uh, talks a lot about judgment and like how to build it and how that makes money. It's like why CEOs get paid so much, and the reason for that is uh, they have so much more to lose. It's like when you when you're the one making decisions, that's when you earn the most. And it's like when your input has, it's like the value of your input, how much your word mm, values. I mean, how much your word is worth. Like, I guess it's like um, the more accountability or the more trust or the more things that you have to lose, that's more money that you're going to make. And I was thinking about it myself, like about the jobs that like I wanted to have or stuff like that. And it's like you do all the work for that other person, but at the end of the day you're going to like present I don't know, 6 months of research and stuff like that. And at the end, there's some other person that's going to decide whether or not to do this. So that's where the judgment comes from. That's where the value of judgment comes from. And the book also talks about like how to build that judgment. And a part of it is obviously like showing accountability and like making people trust you and like being a credible source. And yeah, it's like there's mm, there's sections of the book that are dedicated to this topic. And like for example, um, as an example of like credibility, he was talking about like Warren Buffett and how mm, like he himself, how his word worth and how like how valuable his input is. So yeah. uh Next part is happiness. I mean, to be honest, the book had like so much more. It was like about 100 something pages long, but I think it was one of those books that um that you couldn't just sift through, and like it was one of those that you would just close and like want to ponder and think about it and then like come back at it again. Like I'm not usually the type to want to read books a couple of times, but this was one of the books that mm, I am actually interested in like reading it again. um so this part is about the second chapter revolved around happiness. So happiness is like, this is what the book says, and I think it's really an interesting idea. So happiness is a skill like any other thing. So it's like you learn to be happy, you learn to, it's like as you learn to paint, as you learn to play music or do a craft or exercise or like eat healthy, all of these things, they're just skills. And being happy is also a skill, and it's also a choice. It's like this there's this example that I think I read in another book, but it really right now it reminded me of that. It was like the idea that when people say, oh, I'm not in control of my emotions, and then they're asked to, okay, now like think about something gross. Like you think about something gross and you're actually grossed out. And then they say, okay, think about like something that you're really passionate about or something that makes you really happy. And then they do that, and like their mood changes as they choose to have certain thoughts. It's not to say that, oh, we can control all our thoughts and stuff like that or anything, but as an example, I thought it was really interesting. So it says that happiness is a skill, and it's something that you can learn and obviously practice. And yeah, like any other skill, maybe it's not always perfect, or maybe it's not like always 100% happiness, maybe. And talking about like percentage and like not being totally happy, the book also talks about how when you like it has a negative of itself. Like when you express something positive, it has a negative of itself. It's like when you express that something is a happy moment, it's only defined by saying that something, some moments hasn't been happy, that this moment is happy. I mean, the book really explains it much better. I'm not really an expert in anything, so, but it reminded me of that. And I think it was from a Chinese philosopher that he was referring to, but I don't remember his name. And because I couldn't, like, I knew that I couldn't explain it really well, I also didn't include it in this, but I just I was reminded of it, so I talked about it. And the next part is about desire. So it's like, you know, the book also acknowledges that this could be pretty, what's the word? Pretty cliche. However, uh, it might hold truth. I mean, cliche stuff are not necessarily wrong. They're just said a lot. So maybe they're true. I don't know. Depends. But it's the cliche was that like happiness is internal, and it's saying that like happiness is the absence of desire for an external thing. So I think, I don't know, like, I mean, it's true. It's like when you're in a state that no matter like the circumstances, there's still like something in you that feels that sort of happiness, and like it's not like, okay, I also need this to be happy, I also need this to be blah blah blah. And in the next part it also says that every desire is a chosen unhappiness. So whenever we decide to change something, or when, I mean, desires is actually, yeah, it's a desire to change. Like, we want something to change, we want something new, whatever. And that's a chosen unhappiness. Every time, yeah. I just really like the sentence. That's it. So um the next part also talks about um how the word should mm, means that you actually don't want to do it. And like the book talks about like maybe mm, you don't have to do what you don't want to do. Like it was basically like do what you want to do. And when you come the word, when you like talk about the word should, it's like, yeah, I don't really want to do it internally, but I have to, like, I must. But I mean, in many cases, this is what sucks like the energy and passion out of you when you feel like you have to do it. I think we see that a lot in school and like the schooling system. At least that's the first example for me and how I felt about it. It's like as soon as a subject is forced on me to learn, I just mm, I read about it less. I don't know why. I get more focused about the goal rather the goal of like acing a test and stuff like that rather than learning it. So maybe in the wording of when we think about stuff, mm, maybe use less should. I don't know. Maybe not. Next is like the one of the mm, really interesting parts of the book that it talked about, and it was like the past and the future and like this the stuff that don't exist. Those are the sources of our unhappiness, and I really loved it. He was talking about like um, there is no past. Like past does not exist right now, and there are no memories, and they just don't exist. And it's just they are a big source of unhappiness because when we're reminiscing about something or when we feel like nostalgic about something, this is when we just lose our presence and linger in the past and like stuff like that. I think same as so many other books and um, I don't know nowadays philosophy and advice is to like live in the present and stuff like that. So maybe, and this was also something that um, really made me think a lot because I I'm also the type of person who like values certain memories a lot or like I don't know think about certain memories a lot and when it says that it doesn't actually exist, so maybe it doesn't, maybe it does. Now this is a topic that I really love personally. Like I just felt some sort of internal relief from figuring this one, like reading about it and like internalizing it personally. So it's basically talking about why we part of why we struggle with acceptance is the difficulty of embracing death. So I always thought that I was the type of person who didn't really struggle with death. I'm like I was open in talking about death. But then when I like looked at my own actions in that sense, and like not just mm, dying, but as of finite things ending, that's when it hit me that this is basically the fear of death when I when when we struggle with accepting something. For example, when we struggle with accepting um, the loss of someone, necessarily not their death, but maybe a breakup, maybe a friendship breakup, or any type of thing, or maybe the end of like a certain part of our lives. Like, this is basically death in in a miniature form. And maybe like this is what we fear. Or like maybe someone's the opposite. They're like, oh, I really fear my own death, but they really come to terms with accepting things, and maybe they don't fear death as much as they did. I don't know. So the third part is philosophy. And one of the interesting parts for me was that uh, the author, like, not Eric, but Naval's brother, he was also a philosopher. And his book was one of the books that was mentioned in his book recommendations. And it was pretty interesting for me. That like how people in one family can like differ and be famous on their own. So one of the main parts that was really interesting about this section was the idea of most of our struggles, they already have an answer. Like, the older the question, the older the answer. So, for example, if you're struggling with finding a partner, if you're struggling with, I don't know, what path to choose, or stuff like that, I think this has been some sort of an age-old question, because all the reason why we're here is that people have like found their partner, or like they're found their path, or stuff like that, or anything, I don't know. So this was really interesting for me, that the older the question, the older the answers. And the book also talks about how you should be learning the fundamentals, or like reading the fundamentals. It's like the more you read about like the fathers of philosophy, or like, you know, that classics, they're not just classics. they're classics for a reason. That's what he was saying. And like, because they contain so much unaged and maybe unrotted content, and like material, that they have survived this long, and maybe they're like worth reading more than like other commentary stuff. As I was saying, like, the same as reading, the book had like its own section about the importance of reading, and how you should just fall in love with reading. Like, read what you love until you love to read. So it's about I think it's pretty obvious from the sentence, and maybe I'm just over explaining things, but to me that was also a really interesting concept, because it was saying that even if you don't like find yourself really interested in certain topics, or like reading in general, there is certainly something that you're interested in. Like, even if you're not interested in, like, I don't know, like normal a page full of textbooks, maybe you're interested in something like a graphic novel, or mangas or mm, like similar stuff, but not that they don't hold a value, but it was just saying like start with what you love, start with something that seems easy, and then you will eventually fall in love with reading. And I mean, it goes hand in hand with with reading, uh, which is learn how to learn. Like read, and by reading, learn them. And like the book really talked about certain things that you should be learning and like be mastering, and so many parts of it, I think they were um, related to economics subjects, and like I didn't include them here because I didn't know anything about them personally, and uh, I don't know, like these stuff I saved to read about later, so maybe when you check out the book then you come across those sections, because he was also talking about like certain theories and stuff that you can like think about and learn. And again, like as I said, he really talked about like learning the fundamentals of stuff. So, and there was this part that he suggested, and he talked about like what to learn. First was mathematics, microeconomics, game theory, psychology, ethics, persuasions, and computer. And about mathematics, something that he said and was like really interesting for me was that mathematics is the language of nature. So it's basically how we understand our surroundings, kind of. And maybe because we're so intimidated by it that everything that like has a number or has like a statistics behind it, we're just convinced that it's true because there's just mathematical proof behind it. So that was really cool. And yeah, maybe you should check out to learn these things. I would really want to learn as much as I can about them. And the next part, which was really, I mean, all of this was obviously interesting that I included them here, but he was also talking about how, like, he was talking about our modern day struggle, that we're just trying to like exercise, intermittent fasting, and like meditation, mindful eating, and all these stuff, and this is what we have, plus maybe some self-help and like motivational videos. It's us against all the scientists behind those junk food and like sweets and video games and like clickbait content and illegal drugs and porn and all these things that want to occupy our attention and our time, versus us just trying to like lift some weights and you know eat in a certain amount of time and take control of our life. And yeah, I mean, it's not that it's all lost, but if you're like struggling with it, I mean, it makes sense because scientists are just manipulating your psyche. I don't know. So, what I really loved about this book, and I just love any book that does this, is a book recommendation section. And I always just find it really amazing. And the fact that he mentioned Carlo Rovelli was also really special to me personally because um, he was just one of the authors that I love, especially about physics. And his book, The Order of Time, is just immaculate in my eyes. And the same as his other books, I would really want to like read them all and like maybe make a video about it. I don't know. But the book that he talked about was 7 Brief Lessons on Physics. These two books, they are really short and yeah, they're really short, but it's not to say that they're like they can be read in a sitting. Rather, they're I mean, I'm sure if you have read books on physics or like any type of scientific books, you know that at least for me, I can't like read them in like a really big chunk, but still, I really love Carlo Rovelli's writing, and he has also lots of lectures on YouTube. And it used to be one of the contents that I would binge because he's just such a good teacher. And I'm not someone who like I haven't studied physics in college or anything, but it's something that really interests me, and I just love it, and I love him. um, the next guy, Richard Feynman, I don't think he needs an introduction. I don't think maybe Carlo Rovelli doesn't need an introduction or anything, but I mean, he's like, I'm speechless. Sorry. So, Richard Feynman. One of the things that I really love about him is his interviews, and like when he says that he's just an ordinary person who has worked a lot, and I don't know, it's the type of things that it's really nice to see when people are, I don't know, as human as you can get. When in our mind they might be like geniuses, maybe they are. And the book that he referred to was The 6 Easy Pieces, and the book also talked about like how in this book, The 6 Easy Pieces, how skillfully Richard Feynman had like summarized mathematics in like a few pages. And one of his other books is The Pleasure of Finding Things Out. I personally haven't read any of Richard Feynman's books because I'm kind of intimidated by them. I think they might be kind of too hard for me to understand, but maybe I attempt to do that in the future. There were also some other books that were mentioned, and also blogs and podcasts and stuff like that as well. But I just saw Carlo Loveri's name and I just ended there because I just got so excited. I don't know why. And yeah, last but not least, this the book inspired me to do this video, and I hope you've enjoyed watching it. Okay, bye.